States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Bob?
Here.
Gary?
Here.
Russ?
Here.
Dave?
Here.
Deb?
Here. Any comments from the audience? Anybody? Okay. Okay, we're going to have a motion to move into closed session to discuss the evaluation of the fire chief as per state statutes 1985 1C. And the motion reads as follows. I, Debbie Durkis, on July 8th, 2019, at the properly noticed and called town board meeting of the town of McMillan, Marathon County, Wisconsin, with the quorum of the town board present and voting, as a voting and authorized member of the town board, move and request the town board for a closed session of the town board under state statutes 1985, and I move and request for the record of the town board minutes a roll call vote of the town board members present and voting in this motion. I respectfully include the motion and request that the town board approve the following persons to be allowed to enter and remain in the approved closed session, subject to the individual or group removal of any person from the closed session at any time by majority vote of town board members present and voting in the closed sessions for Rodney Bauer. And the town board will reconvene into open session after the closed session. The nature of the business to be considered in the closed session is the following: employee evaluation of the fire chief. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Yes. At the last meeting, we discussed the process for evaluating the fire chief, and my understanding was we were going to be informed of that process. I haven't heard anything about a process or an evaluation being carried out, so I don't understand how we can have a closed session to discuss the evaluation if no evaluation has been carried out.
What it amounts to is more or less a review, which he has to have every year. We have the bylaws and we have the SOGs, which is their policies and procedures, which I told Dave this the other day.
Has a review been carried out? Has that review, that performance evaluation, that review you just referred to, been indeed carried out?
In the last year, no. I asked Robbie how long it's been. He said it's been about a year. And according to the policies and procedures, it should be yearly.
I would have thought that an evaluation would have been done, but prior to this meeting, and the closed session would be to discuss the results of that evaluation. So I don't really understand the purpose of the closed meeting.
Well, I guess find out when we get in here. Anything else? Tanya?
Okay, Bob?
No.
Gary?
Yes.
Russ?
Yes.
Dave?
No.
Deb?
Well, I was going to have it in the back room, but I think we're going to have everybody leave. Because there's no chairs to sit at.
I think we can maybe commandeer some chairs and have it in the back room rather than make everyone leave.
I would prefer to go back there and just sit.
I think we should go up to the garage, up to her
Yeah.
office if she allows that.
We can't, it says on here, on their agenda, sorry, we have to have it here. So it's either in here or in the back room. It's gonna be at the town hall.
We can all leave. We can all step out. It's a nice night.
Beautiful weather.
All right.
Please, can you make sure your camera's on?
Okay.
Yeah, I did. Motion to do that?
That motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Tanya?
Bob?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Russ?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes. Okay, we'll go to the approval of the town board minutes of June 14th, 2019.
Well, that section in there, Friends did not want to have a meeting, yet the late fees the town would have incurred would have cost the town more than holding a meeting. I didn't want to have a meeting
Are you
at
talking about
first.
the June 14th minutes?
Yes.
Okay, nobody told me there were any problems with these minutes. I wasn't at this meeting, but it looks like I would have known about any corrections before tonight.
I called Deb.
Who typed these?
Okay,
Are these your names, Patty?
I don't know that I got that detailed. I know I didn't do the formatting on the right-hand side. I've never kept a copy, I can't tell you for sure.
I haven't touched these, I just printed them. So,
I just don't
tell
want
me, it
the-
doesn't matter, just tell me what corrections you want. and I'll
I
do it.
don't want that in there because I never had a problem having the meeting once I found out what the cost would have been. When they first called and asked about a special meeting, I said I wasn't in favor of having one. But then when I found out that we would have incurred $1,600 and some worth of late fees, of course we're gonna have a meeting. This makes it sound like I still didn't wanna have the meeting, and I don't want anyone to get that impression because I did not wanna have a meeting. You know, not have a meeting and incur that.
So who took the minutes?
Patty did.
I took the minutes.
And my name is S in the bottom instead of a Z.
Okay,
Other than that, I don't have a problem.
any other corrections?
Yeah, I think we need a signature at the bottom of it.
Do you want me to put-
And I'm sorry if I didn't go ahead and tell you, I talked to
That's okay,
Deb, and I assumed she'd pass it on.
You assumed wrong.
Yeah. Never trust anyone else to do something for you.
So would you like for me to correct these and bring them to the next meeting?
No, we can just prove with the corrections.
Is that your motion?
Yeah.
Can I get a second?
I'm second.
Any discussion? Or any more? Roll call?
Bob,
Abstain?
Gary,
Yes.
Russ,
Yes.
Dave,
Aye.
Deb.
Aye. Okay, for reports, plan commission, Mr. Mike,
Just the level one,
pardon?
just the level one that we did
Right,
to forward on to you. We think it's okay, so it's up to you now.
is Darnell here tonight? No, huh? Okay. Rod?
So there's no report on the plan commission?
Just that they approved the level.
Is that Lapo Radetsky?
No, that's Darnell level.
Number of calls we had this last year, or last month, since the last board meeting, normal monthly board meeting, not your special one. We had 7 EMS calls, no motor vehicle accidents, no mutual aid, no false alarms, and no fire calls. No new hires or anything of that sort to be mentioned this month either. Classes that have been taken, Cody Bauer and Kim Kilkey took an incident safety officer's class through FEMA. That was a class that was offered down in Rapids. I believe that was roughly a 14-hour class. That's covered under FEMA funding. That normally the tech schools where the county emergency government applies for those grants. Otherwise, I had reported that we were trying Tango through the county at the county's expense or at that company's offering to the county. And so far, the app is liked by most of the department who's using it. Basically, it allows the departments, they have a radio set up in Wausau at the dispatch counter that then puts this stuff over our cell phones. And then it also allows our people to talk in by just pushing a button on their cell phones back and forth. And these are their personal phones. This is not on. The only one that's on is the chief's phone. It's on that one. And I'm using Wi-Fi for that. I'm not using data at this time. The department has most of our hand lines and supply line hose tested. We're about 3/4 of the way through that process also. Training for this next month, we're going to be doing, since we have such a large group of Firefighter 1 students that are going to be going, I believe, next month for their certification, we're going to be going down to the Marshfield Mid-State Training Center that they have down off of Vine, and we're going to be doing those type of scenarios, ventilation, ropes, knots, ladders, and so forth like that. The stuff that they'll be tested on. As far as EMS goes, the department is working on planning a Stop the Bleed training for the town residents. The Stop the Bleed is a national awareness campaign that is called into action. Stopping the Bleed is intended for cultivate grassroots efforts to empower people in the bleeding emergencies that can happen before professional help can arrive. This basically, our feeling is in this area is with all the farming that we have, all the animals that we have, that this is a prime place for us to try to get some of our residents so that they know how to stop the bleeding. And with all the machinery that we have.
When is that gonna be?
We have not determined when that is going to be yet. If we get individuals, and that's why it's also going to be in the newsletter, we'd like to know if we have enough people to run the class.
Okay.
Usually we would like, like 10 people or so to get together, and we'd like to know when they would kind of like to run it. That's why on the back, there's a phone number here to contact, so that if we get some residents that want to do it, and then we'll probably put out another. But we need to know if there's people that are willing and wanting to take part in it. It's, I believe, just a couple-hour course. I've been involved with Marshfield, and we've talked to teachers and stuff. Obviously, they're more worried about shootings and maybe somebody getting hurt in the shot classes. But obviously, out here we got a little bit different scenario. I'm not really worried about mass shootings or stuff like that. And that's why nationwide, that's what they're going for. But I think here we've got some different issues. But it can be very well utilized.
Did you hear any more from AT&T?
I have not.
Okay, because I know you wanted them to come and
Yes.
speak or whatever it was.
I kind of talked to them, and there was some conflicts of timing there, so.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Or ready for the question, no? Okay, Finance Committee, John?
The Finance Committee met on Monday, June 24th. They will be having monthly meetings on the fourth Monday of each month for the foreseeable future. One-year appointments were made by the town board, and they will be made annually, and the appointments may be renewed unlimited times at the board discretion. We reviewed the proposal for the redesign of the website. The committee voted unanimously to recommend approval to the town board, with the caveat that we would look, that the town or the clerk would look into proceeding without the hosting option. The hosting seems a bit expensive. Over the next couple of meetings, we'll be looking to meet with the various department heads to get a feel for what their budget needs are. And finally, we'll be reviewing similarly situated towns and comparing their revenue expenses to ours.
Any questions for John?
Very clear. Back up to the fire department one more time.
Sure.
Lori, would you like to explain that?
The EMS group is opened up, since we're EMT basic non-transport, it's now opened up a financial aid assistance for us through the state of Wisconsin. The application is due the 17th of June, and I can get up to $3,000 for equipment only. That's like our AEDs, our backboards, our splints.
That's a grant type thing?
Yes, it's basically the state is giving me $3,000 to go buy equipment I need. I just need you guys' approval to say, yes, I can do this, and I'll get everything filled out and sent it.
We need a motion on that? No, I mean, it's not listed on our
We can't
agenda, I
vote
would
on
say.
that tonight.
Pardon?
Can't vote on that tonight.
I think you've already had permission to fill out any grants needed
I
that
did,
that were not gonna be costing the town any money?
okay, this will not cost you.
Am I
any money.
correct? Rod?
My interpretation of that was that it was supposed to be brought to the board, whether you needed to vote on it or not, but you were supposed to be made aware of what
Right. this
this grant is, and that's what this is. This is to make you aware of this grant.
Okay. Then we're gold.
Okay, good. I'll get it off the list.
I think that if
And
any of them,
once you fill out your report or whatever, and itemize what equipment you want and stuff, that information needs to be brought to the board so we can, or, look at it, and make sure that
Yep.
things are going in the right direction.
Yep.
Okay.
Do you want that prior to it being sent in, or?
you know, because we won't be having.
Yeah, it'd be best if we had it prior.
It's
Once
gotta
it's
be
sent
all,
in, then
it's all gotta be all done and sent in by the 17th. I've got a very limited.
Of this
window
month?
here. Yes, I have a very limited window with this one.
Can you email us a list of what you're doing?
Yeah, when I get it all figured
With
out,
the
what
town
we
board?
need and everything, I can, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Electrifies, Russ?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, I think we're understanding of what needs to be.
Yep.
So that,
Yep.
so there's no misunderstandings after this thing is over.
Yep.
And then everybody's upset.
Anything else? Library, Bob?
Sure. So you probably all know this, but McMillan Township residents have access to all the materials in the Everett Rail Marshfield Public Library. We have an agreement with them, and we help support that library. There will be additional details about the library in the McMillan Township newsletter that's coming out soon, so please refer to that for additional statistics and news about the library. Just a couple of things. I'll give you some statistics. In June of this month, there were about 17,000 total books and materials checked out from the library, and about 1,400 of those were from McMillan Township residents. If you think about the population of the two, that's an appropriate ratio, but there's room for improvement. The library is quite busy with summer youth programs. If you think about your children, grandchildren, friends, there are some youth with not as much to do in the summers as they have during the winter, and so the library is trying to keep them busy. That's all I have.
Thank you. Dave?
Garbage and recycling, I haven't got anything more to report than I did last month. We had a couple requests for recycling bins and garbage cans. Anybody have any questions or comments at this point in time? I know we had a comment from Gary the last time. Dorothy?
I was just wondering, we've lost a few citizens in this township. Are they being taxed with that? Because the recycling is still on our tax bill. So is there any way for them to recoup that because there's nobody lives in these houses?
No.
Yeah, and are them bins supposed to go back?
Well, they're supposed to stay with the residents, right? As far as I know.
If they're at the home, I assume.
Right, so if the house is still there, the garbage and recycling cart should still be there,
Stay there.
whether they passed or moved. What happens sometimes is when they move, they take the cart with them. Because there's also been people that have moved into the township and that cart doesn't match the one we got, so. But that didn't stay with the residents. Okay, that's all I have.
I had called Dave, I actually talked to the guy driving the truck.
Oh, yeah.
Believe it or not, the guy is driving the truck and he's dumping as he's driving. He just dumped it prior, the corner where I live, and I was picking the stuff up out of my north ditch and my east ditch, and I stopped him when he came up from behind me. Tells me, you don't have time to stop, pick that stuff up. So I let Dave know that he was gonna talk.
And I've talked to Dale and Martha about it, and did he give you the story that at the top, there weren't any tops in there?
Yeah, he told me that they don't have tops on them.
And I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, me too.
But I will get clarification, let you know.
Like I said, the dump as he's driving, it's like he's lucky he wasn't going over where you got wires overhead at the time.
I received a call too from a resident, same thing, of having garbage all over the road, you know, from the garbage trucks.
And I think the recyclables are
Same
worse
place.
than garbage.
Same place he's talking about?
No, this was by him or by us, this was someplace else in township.
Do you know where?
Yeah, I can't remember.
And I think the recyclable is worse than the garbage. I think that's the main problem.
There was a woman that.
Yeah.
And it would be because, you know, stuff isn't in bags.
Did she get a hold of you?
Over on the headline?
Yeah.
Yep. State.
Okay. I know she was not real happy.
I called Dale Mar, and
Yeah.
from there out, it's out of my hands, but,
Yeah, I think this person called in too, and they said that it's already been reported several times, so hopefully we got contact with their driver, got him a little more training or something.
Well, it's almost like they go when they want to flip that garbage, they do it as they're going around down the road instead of, sitting in one spot. So I think that's where a lot of it.
That's the first time I saw the garbage guy. He usually stops. But, I looked up out the window and it's like, you gotta be kidding me. Here he comes down the road as he's dumping, as he's driving.
Yeah. Erie Highway,
Okay, that street light on Staten 97, I got that fixed.
mm-hmm.
Called him up, the sensor was out, so it was staying on all the time. So if anyone sees any of our township
So one over,
street lights that are,
the one over in our parking lot, that's a city, or city utility light, and we had asked that be fixed when the one over here was fixed. They didn't do anything with it, so
Who has that?
if you have, the Martian utilities.
well, I call Marshville, and, well, this one was Alliant.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess
We
Marshville
have
got some.
two with Marshfield and one with Alliant.
Yeah. So, the guy was actually there the next day, and I just happened to be driving by, so I talked to him, and he says on every utility pole, there is a number on a tag on the pole, and if you ever have to call in, give them that number, and then they'll know exactly
What are you talking about?
where it is.
You want to get that number for Tanya and she can.
Sure.
Okay, county hasn't got back to me on them two big culverts up on E yet. Pat did get that ditch to where the guy put in that culvert north of C. He hasn't got the stuff done on Man in Lincoln or St. Joe's in Penny yet. He hasn't got back to me about the culvert up there on Old Plain. He's been grading, I guess, where needed and ditching. And guess that's all I have.
Okay, any questions?
When he didn't finish on, Elm Tree Road.
Well, that, we're sitting right now that we don't have a plan, we have to get to that guy, and we still have a discrepancy as to where the road actually ends. We have two different measurements, one from the state that puts the road ending before the chip seal ends, and another one from the report, from the Whistler report that goes beyond where the chip seal ends. And then you wanted to go further than that yet.
I wanted to go to the 40 marker so the gas company can extend natural gas to our new home we're building. And I talked to the county surveyor, and I talked to Tim Vreeland, who the county surveyor told me to call. Tim said it's very simple. I'll measure it for the township, deed it to the township, it can get recorded, and it can be taken care of. And I relayed that to you, and I'm wondering what progress you've made on it.
That was the other day. And to the half-mile mark, I mean, we need to know what it would cost to go there. And the additional road miles we get. I mean, what's the payback on extending that? And is anybody else on any of the other dead ends gonna want us to extend it then? I mean, because once you open up that can of worms, it's open up for everybody.
I have a 40-acre parcel that would be landlocked if the township doesn't take it.
No, that's your driveway from the end of that
No, it is
road.
not my driveway. And there's where I'll disagree with you. I talked to you and I talked to the chair, and the chair told me you were supposed to take care of it.
The chair told you that we were sitting in a position where we needed to get the measurements and we needed permission from your neighbor in order to put that turnaround in there also.
And I also related to you what the county surveyor told me and what Tim Breland told me.
Mhm. We
Any
said-
action being taken.
Mhm. And I told Gary that when he can figure out what he needs to do on there, to do it.
Okay, thank you.
And before we can do anything, we need to send the owner of that property a drawing of where everything is with all the detailed dimensions and everything.
That's
He
what
wants
he's
to look at
requesting.
it.
Yep. And I told you that.
And I gave you his number.
I talked to him, and that's what he told me.
You and I talked, yeah. I've talked to him also, Gary.
Okay, anything else, Gary?
No,
Okay. Buildings and grounds, community picnic, newsletter, I think everybody's got their articles in except Tanya, I need one from you, Patty. And Russ is getting me his, otherwise I think I got everybody else's. Do you want anything in there for EMS, Lori?
It's in,
It's in the flyer thing, okay.
I think the treasurer wanted to just sort of get the thing in there, all the dogs and everything, just sort of. I know the years I had it, you just sort of kept that same article in there just as a reminder to everyone.
And as long as we have such a nice full house, I'd like to invite everybody to the picnic on July 28th and to Fall Festival on September 7th. Otherwise, we got a lot of people for the picnic. The newsletters we're working on, I'm hoping to get them done by the end of this week and out. So, Russ, I'll need yours tomorrow, Tanya.
So if you have it tonight, I've already worked on it.
Okay. And Patty?
Sure.
Okay, clerk's report, Tanya.
I'll give you this for the mailing list I made.
Oh, the address thing, yeah, 'cause that saves on quite a few of them, actually. There was what,
Want it
100
back?
off of there? You'll get it back.
So in your packet, you should have the clerk report that I gave you. You'll see that there were 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 zoning permits issued by Marathon County, and there were 3 sanitary permits issued by Marathon County during the month of June. I think at the beginning of June, we were continuing to issue weight limit permits, but we've not had to issue any of those in quite some time. We have 22 rentals for the pavilion to date for May through September, and then I have several that have already booked it for 2020. So office hours for July and August, Thursdays from 7 to 3:45. During the summer, I just wanted to remind you guys are the clerk's slow times. So the work is still being done. We don't have any elections, we don't have any board review, we don't have any big things going on, but there's still work being done, whether it's in the office or at my home. I'm available by phone and email daily. I would like to ask the board to authorize a check, for me to authorize a check to process for Mackey for $500 for the picnic. This request came in on Friday afternoon, and we had a problem with our financial software, so I was not able to process the check. And it's needed for the picnic before the next board meeting.
Didn't remind you to turn that off, did
Right, so I'd like to ask for for a motion to approve the check if possible.
I'll make a motion to approve the check for Mackey for $500 for the picnic, for gift certificates.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
All right, Bob,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Russ,
Yes.
Dave,
No,
and Debbie.
Yes. I want you.
They're there, man. I got a question.
Yes.
Is, somebody talked to you about, I guess the pavilion is rented the same day as Fall Fest?
Yes, Deb and I spoke about it, and I contacted the person that had it rented, and it was rented, I think, the very beginning of June. And they've already sent out their invitations, and they want to keep the day. I've not had a chance to follow up with Deb. This was Friday when I called her. They still want to keep the day, and they do understand that we will have this whole area full of cars and vehicles. It's just for a baby shower for an hour and a half. So
Are they gonna be able to get to the pavilion?
What time?
what
time of
was
day
one
are
of-
you doing it?
Yeah, and that was one of the questions they asked me. I think they're doing it like 10 in the morning to like 11:30.
So then it won't even interfere.
Yeah, that'll be no problem then.
Okay, so, yeah, and I
You
even.
just can't block off the road on them.
We don't block it off that early,
Okay.
I mean, because I believe our stuff starts usually at noon, so I mean, we,
Yeah, that should work out.
that shouldn't be an issue that way.
Okay,
They
so,
should be able to do that.
right, so I'll call her back and let her know that I have the note on my desk to do that on
Okay.
Thursday, okay? All right, I also, before I get into my office and QuickBooks, I provided you guys all with a budget year to date, budget to actual. So I've given you actual results for January through June, and then compare that to budget. So, I don't know that it benefits anybody going through all of this tonight, but if you look over it and you have questions, I'm happy to talk to you about that offline. So unless you have questions right now, if you want to ask me.
I got a question about your hours. I was
Yeah.
asked the other day, people that work 9 to 5, they need to see you about a permit or something.
Sure.
What can be arranged?
So I do
You know,
this,
our prior clerk, he worked 12 hours a day, which I understand you can't
Sure.
in that. But he, you know, you're usually available 2 days a week, 10 to 3, I believe.
yeah, and yeah, that's what it's been until the summer. But I issue permits and I respond to emails and phone calls during the week. So I have a cell phone and then I take my laptop home. So this week I issued a fireworks permit from home. So the guy left me a voicemail, I returned his call the same day, and then he had his permit later that afternoon.
So they leave you a voicemail on either
Yeah.
the town phone
Yeah,
or
and then
the
my,
portable?
yep, and my email is on the website too, so I get emails or phone calls. But when I am in the office, and I've been in the office usually 2, sometimes 3 days a week, I hardly get any visitors. So, but I do get calls and emails that I respond to.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Right. Okay, so just a couple of things I just wanted to just let the board know about, and so we can kind of talk through it and maybe make some decisions on how you want me to move forward. So I just typed up this brief letter. It says, I'd like to take the opportunity to inform the board of the town of McMillan of a few items that have transpired over the last 30 days. As a reminder, the clerk position reports to the town board. Wisconsin Statute 60.33 outlines the role of the clerk. Several of the main legal responsibilities include maintaining a finance book, elections, notices, records, and licensing and permits. The QuickBooks financial software that's been the clerk's responsibility is currently owned by the chair and has been since she was clerk. This was made known to me within the last 30 to 60 days, and I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that. I have no problem with it, but I wanted to make sure that you guys knew that because I wasn't aware of that. During the May 13th meeting, the chair asked me to secure my office, which included changing the locks on all the doors that lead into my office as well as the records room. She also informed the treasurer to move her office to the town hall per the town ordinance. I followed these orders and my office was secure within 2 weeks following this meeting. During my vacation to Canada at the beginning of June, I deputized a clerk to take minutes for me at the June 8th meeting and respond to any business that could not wait until my return. At the time of the appointment, I was not aware that the deputy clerk would be appointed as treasurer. I provided the deputy clerk with access to the records room, all doors of my office, and my laptop, and this is customary to do. While I was away on vacation for 1 week, the chair changed the financial records to provide access to the treasurer and has created an admin role which can create users and change passwords. Upon my return, this was discussed with me by the treasurer, and all usernames and passwords were given to me. I immediately logged in to change my password that was assigned to the clerk, and then I also tried to change the password assigned to the admin, as I should be the admin of the system, but I did not have access to do so. I contacted the chair to report this problem, and it was explained to me that the clerk and treasurer both have roles in the software and that transactions have an audit trail by user. While this is true, it is also true that the chair holds the admin user and can change individual users and passwords as she wishes that could potentially create false transactions. While I have no reason to not trust the chair, a good accountant knows that segregation of duties and internal controls are key to accurate financial statements. During my vacation to Florida at the end of the month, I notified the chair in advance and explained that I would be working remotely. At the time of the conversation, she did not have any problems with me doing so. The summer months are not busy for the clerk, so June was a perfect time for me to take time away to visit my mom in Georgia and other family in Florida. 1 to 2 days prior to my departure, the chair notified me that I was not allowed to take my laptop off premise and out of state. The first reason provided to me is that there's not sufficient backup of the computer. I did explain to the chair that I have a full backup of my computer on my desk. The backup runs every hour that my laptop is plugged in. The next reason was that there is a risk of the laptop getting damaged. I explained to the chair that my position is not full-time in the office and that my laptop has to be transported back and forth to my home on a regular basis. There was no resolution to the conversation. I explained to the chair that I would not be able to work during those 2 weeks if my laptop had to be left in the office. I was able to respond to emails and voicemails that I could see from my phone. During this time, I was contacted by the treasurer after I had left for my laptop password so that she and the chair could log into my computer again to work on the financial software. I had to provide this information again. The chair also required that I leave my keys to the record room and office while I was away. The keys were returned. I say all of this to inform you that the records room in my office and my laptop have not been secure for the past 30 days. I asked the board to consider the following. There's 4 things I'm just asking you to make a decision on. One is authorize the clerk to install a new QuickBooks software that's owned by the town. The clerk would set up a user for the treasurer to reconcile and record bank activity, and the clerk and treasurer could determine how best to make this work. Number 2 is decide if the chair should have access to the records room. This decision should be managed by the board. This would change the requirement by the Wisconsin statute that the clerk should be the legal custodian of the records. However, this access can be permitted to the chair. If the board permits this access, then there would not be any accountability on the clerk to maintain the records. Number 3, decide if the clerk's computer should be the property of the clerk and should not be accessed without board request or approval. The computer holds all public records, and there is confidential information contained on the computer. And then number 4, decide if the treasurer will share the office with the clerk. I have never minded to share my office, but because there is an ordinance, the board should change the ordinance. If the board chooses to keep the ordinance in place, I will have the locks changed on the office and the records room. I want to remind each of you that during my short tenure here, I have worked diligently to support both chairs, Carolyn and Deb. I was recently commended on my efforts by the current chair. I've also supported each of you supervisors and supported Kevin while he was here. I will continue to do so during my term. However, it's my legal obligation to bring forth these concerns. Thank you.
Okay, so with QuickBooks, I cannot just get into Tanya's computer to change anything. She would have to be there because these computers are password protected.
You had my password though.
I didn't have your password. I never had your password. I think you gave
Well,
that to
you
the
weren't on
deputy.
the second, sorry.
I believe you gave it to Patty, but I never had it, ever. So I would not be able to get into anybody's computer unless the deputy clerk was there or you. And I didn't change anything in your QuickBooks, I changed the password. And it's called checks and balances on the town side, or the side of the town. I can't get into her computer without her there, but the town is responsible for the financials. The board is.
All I can tell you is my computer was accessed while I was gone. Both times, my computer has been accessed. I have a new QuickBooks file set up on my, not a file, but it's a new access. So there's an admin login, there is a clerk login, and there is a treasurer login. Before, there was only one login, and that was for me, or Mike, or whomever the previous clerk was. I don't have access to the admin logon, and I did do the research today. Whoever has the administrative login, they can change the users and they can change the password. So whoever has that right now can change my password, can go in and do transactions, and then can change it back. And it will show an audit trail that I did the transaction. That's what I'm trying to communicate.
The way that we're trying to get this set up to work remotely is the clerk and the treasurer each have their own area to work in. You can do everything as clerk under there. Patty, can you explain this?
No, I understand it. I understand what we're trying to set up, but what we're trying to set up requires for my computer to be in the office whenever Patty wants to work. And that was never discussed with me. And I have my appointment, I have the minutes from my appointment, and my appointment only says that I have to have regular office hours. It doesn't say I have to have how many in the office, and it doesn't say that I have to leave my laptop in the office. And at this point, I'm not comfortable with there being an admin of QuickBooks and it not be me, because I'm responsible for the financial records for the state of Wisconsin. And I'm not comfortable with somebody having access to be able to change my user and my password, and I'm just making that public.
But I can't even get into the computer without you sitting there, because your computer is password protected. Am I correct?
My computer is password protected, but
Okay.
while I was gone during the last 30 days, there were instances of QuickBooks put on, definitely on Patty's computer, and I don't know who else's computer.
Nobody's. Patty had to go in and do payroll because you weren't here.
That's right, I asked her to do that.
Yeah. But other than, I never seen your computer.
I'm not saying that anything wrong is happening. I'm not saying that I don't trust anybody, but it's not good financial practice for somebody to have access to be able to change my user and my password.
But I wouldn't be able to do it without you sitting right
I
there.
don't know what you're able to do or not, because you have all the QuickBooks on your computers at home for all of your businesses. And you still own this one, so I don't know.
I can't get into it at my
But I
house.
don't know that, Deb.
Well, I'm telling you, I can't.
Well, my understanding was that when Patty was clerk and Steve was treasurer,
Mhm.
they used QuickBooks.
Yeah.
And each of them could access it with their own computer, but they couldn't
Cross over.
change anything on the other one's computer.
Mhm.
So why would she need your computer
To network.
to network?
To network, because there is no desktop. All the files are on that laptop.
But all this was done without having a conversation with me on how this would work or how we would need to have it work. All this was basically done when I had deputized Patty as clerk, and then nobody communicated with me. It was basically, and I've never, even in my 25 years of employment, had an employer take my computer and do stuff to it without discussing it with me.
I didn't touch your computer.
Patty
QuickBooks
told me
was
that
on your computer, Tanya.
Yes, I know that, but my computer, Patty, you told me that you and Deb took my computer and did all the changes to QuickBooks, right?
Okay.
I don't remember any changes that we had.
Okay, who set up the admin and the treasurer role?
I set up the admin and set up a password, or Patty set up a password on hers. But other than changing anything, we never changed anything. I looked at different records, but that was it.
But-
With her sitting there.
No, that's fine, but things were changed on on QuickBooks to be able to add the treasurer and the admin role.
Which you knew we were planning on networking, and in order to do that, you have to put them in both computers, the clerk and treasurer.
You and I had talked that whenever the new treasurer was appointed, that we would share software. The new treasurer was appointed while I was away, and all of this work was done before I came back. Nobody discussed how this was going to work or what exactly we were going to do.
Yeah, I think we did, Tanya. I think we sat down and said we were gonna do the networking end of this.
Not what I was going.
Because I don't,
What did you say?
When I went to Canada, Patty had not been appointed as treasurer. When I came back from Canada, it was just a 1 week period of time. The changes to QuickBooks transpired before I came back.
What was the urgency of making those changes while she was gone for a week?
what changes?
Setting up the admin and the treasurer role.
Oh, because she was gonna try to download it onto her computer so you guys could network.
But
That's what it
nobody
was.
talked to me about that.
Oh, yes, I did.
We didn't even have a treasurer appointed at that time before I left Deb. We talked simply about sharing the software. We did not talk about how it would work or what needed to be done.
Well, that's why I had asked you to hook up the Wi-Fi down here so that you guys could, or the internet, so you guys could work together networking. Am I correct?
Yes, but networking is not gonna work with what was just presented to the board, so I don't know how you wanna do the financials, because 2019's is not available in Wistar Win. I can't find it anywhere. Somebody wants to contact the former treasurer, please do so on my behalf. I don't understand where this is coming from, because all we're doing is pointing fingers, and I'm not gonna.
I'm not pointing fingers. I'm trying to protect my role as, there is no pointing fingers. My report was very objective. I told you guys what was going on, and based on what has happened, there's no pointing fingers.
Same can be said about communication.
What do you wanna do? You wanna go buy software instead of having it donated, or how do you wanna work this?
Tanya had some very specific recommendations. Perhaps we could go through those one by one and see if we agree with those. But I'm personally, as a board member, not comfortable with our checks and balances with our finances. If the clerk isn't comfortable, that people aren't going in and potentially making changes, whether by accident or on purpose, then I don't think we can move forward until we fix that.
Do you guys understand how this works? She would have to be there in order for me to access.
Not if someone else is the administrator. You can change, the administrator can
That's not
change
true.
passwords, add users,
No,
remove users.
That's not true.
No,
Is that true, Tanya?
no.
When I looked online today, the admin can change that.
You have to
What-
get through Windows first.
What I
Excuse me.
don't understand at this point is what Deb can access from home without having a laptop.
Absolutely nothing. There is absolutely nothing. It's on your computer. I cannot access anything unless I
But when
could.
I asked for the admin logon and to change it to my password, it was not given to me.
You're right, it wasn't. I said you can do everything in there as a clerk.
If I were chair, I would not want the responsibility of having any access whatsoever. That's,
As a board member, you should, because it's your responsibility.
absolutely not. The clerk provides us with that information.
That clerk is custodian of all records, and nobody should have access to that except the clerk. Commissioner.
Well, that's exactly the way it's set up. You can't even get into
That is
her
what I'm
computer.
hearing.
Same here.
Oh. Like I said, what do you wanna do? Go buy new software or what?
Change the administrator.
Well, let's get back to the records. The records room. Was there a reason that you needed a key to get in there?
Yeah, Patty and I went and looked for the road files.
No,
So
yeah, that's, okay.
that was it.
Yeah, which we can't find, nobody knows where they went to, we
They're on my
tried to find
desk.
that on.
They're on
You
my
found
desk.
them?
No, but the Whistler report, if you're looking for the
No.
Whistler
No, we're
report.
looking for
We
road
had a
files.
report on every road,
Yep, so So
in
I,
this township, when it was made, what they did and everything. We
Each-
wanted to research Elm and
Where'd
we
you
can't
find
find, they said they couldn't
I
find
have
any of them records.
I have a thick file on the back credenza, my back credenza that has been there since Carolyn left. And she gave it to me at the end of the year, and I had discussed it with you guys that I had gone into Whistler and put in all the maintenance of half of the roads. I had not finished the other half. It's not due until December. And so I have a thick file of all the roads and the maintenance work that's been done. Now, I can't tell you if it's exactly what you're looking for, but it's sitting on my credenza in my office.
Well, we used to have a file on every road in the records room. I mean, it was a separate file for each
Okay, I
road.
just have a thick folder with stuff in
And
it.
that would have been, what, from the flood or what?
I have no clue.
I don't know either.
I think it's taken us 2 years as a township to be comfortable with a budget. And we've had 2 clerks in the meantime, and former clerk Mike spent and documented in an inordinate amount of time to try to get some semblance of order. Last fall, I was more comfortable than I have been in the last 2 years with what's presented to the constituents. And I don't like what I'm hearing right now tonight.
One thing that might be helpful is to bring in the finance committee to help sort this out and get their recommendations.
And I'm perfectly comfortable with that. I just wanted you guys to know that this had transpired during the last meeting.
The chair of the finance committee is here and members, and I don't know if you have any thoughts or comments. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I suspect the finance committee would be happy to review the situation and make some recommendations.
And that was a concern of mine when the treasurer was up there. I mean, she was up there days that the clerk wasn't in there. You know, along with the former chair.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, nobody belongs in that office if the clerk is not in there.
And why do you want keys there?
Yeah.
I didn't ask for a key to the clerk's office.
All right, let's move on. So what else you got, Tanya?
Nothing, I just asked if you guys would consider those 4 items so I can email them to you. Consider them over the next month.
Can you, Tanya, do you feel comfortable sharing those with the finance committee as well?
Sure. There's nothing.
Okay, Patty.
So I emailed the board a treasurer's report, and it has the bank statement balances for the checking account, tax savings, FERC savings, fire department, all fest savings account. Discuss the loan. Also, that the chair had to accompany me to the bank for a transfer to cover the expenditures as well as the loan payment that we had the special meeting for. And in that email, I also made a recommendation to change the resolution on the agenda in front of the board tonight because there was issue at the bank in getting the loan information. And the resolution does not specifically mention the loan, so at this point, according to our bank, the former treasurer, the former clerk, and the former chair can access the loan. We can make a payment, but we can't get the breakdown for the files. Any questions on those?
I see on the old checks,
Outstanding checklist?
outstanding checklist.
I don't have access to that. The clerk printed that.
Rod, I understand you were trying to work on The one that's been out there since 2017, not cashed yet,
Which check is that?
Chantel Monte.
And we wrote out a replacement check actually for that, didn't we?
But it hadn't been delivered
I don't-
to the individual's father. So we
Okay.
had to get a hold of her. And that was done by the previous chair.
That check just needs to be turned over to the state, Gary. It can't be voided or anything, I just need to turn it over to the state. Whenever
Right.
that
Well,
filing.
the last I heard that Rod was gonna work on it, I didn't know if he,
Yeah, I think he did. He made some phone calls and he communicated with Mike and myself. We've not been able to do anything, so it just needs to be turned over to the state.
And I agree with that.
I mean, that's,
Let's be done with that.
we don't, I know we had some other ones that they just canceled it and I think reissued it. You know, we tried to get it so that there were no checks outstanding after 6 months. A couple of years ago, and that slipped by the wayside, so I'm trying to get it back in there again. And there are a few payroll checks from April. I would think that the people would need their money by now and be cashed in checks.
But the other issue I had when I took office was I was given a couple of computers. Told that different software and different programs are on individual computers. What I didn't find was the 2019 file for Wistar Win. What I've done is gone back through the clerk's files for QuickBooks and found some things that I believe are not appropriated to the correct line items, but I think that maybe the board or the finance committee should review those. I've also found that I believe the fire department savings account and the transfer that was made at the last, maybe the last meeting in December, is incorrect. I've discussed this with Rod briefly today. We weren't able to connect prior to that, but in December, there was a transfer of $16,346.75, and that was to, if I'm correct, reimburse the checking account for the Fall Fest expense. In January, the reconciliation lists that savings account balance at $1,265.43. Unbeknownst to the fire chief, there were 2 cashier's checks debited from the the Fall Fest Fire Department savings account to pay for 2 invoices at Fall Fest, which means when you did the transfer and they printed out the total of $16,000, those were paid twice according to that run on the reconciliation. So the fire department Fall Fest savings account paid the town back $1,732.35 twice. They also have a revenue account in QuickBooks for their, what's called a firefighter fundraiser, which is the Bratson election. And those expenses are also coming out of Fall Fest, which means Fall Fest also reimbursed another $122.96. So what I'm saying in short is the Fall Fest savings account was shorted because they paid twice and over.
Were these transactions from 2018, Patty?
Yes, which would create an off balance for 2019.
What was the total on the overcharge? Was it like $1,700 and some dollars?
$1,732.35. And unless the agreement is to also reimburse for election day brat pies, there's at least 4 transactions worth $122.96 that were debited to Fall Fest. So maybe that's another issue that the finance committee should review and bring back to the board, because that's volunteer funds and they were short. And I have like 5 pages of other things. Do you want to go through them now, or would you like to put them in front of the finance?
I just don't understand why you would issue the money, all the problems we had with money orders in the past, why somebody would,
It was a debit and a cashier's check from that savings account. So you want to call it a money order? If I called it that, I apologize, I didn't mean to. It is a specific cashier's check, 2 cashier's checks, one for the band and one from their printing.
for the end of the month, they report.
I have not found them in the minutes, but.
No, they were never board approved because I checked through them when you brought it to my attention to see when those transactions had ever been board approved, and they weren't.
In talking to Rod, he didn't know about it either.
Yeah.
So were these transactions that you found in the QuickBooks when you had my laptop?
That was in bank statements, wasn't it, Patty?
Yes.
And so, but I thought I heard there were some coding issues that you found. Like they were appropriated to the wrong accounts, like in WinStar Win or in QuickBooks?
Both.
So it was when you had my computer and you were researching items in QuickBooks then?
Is there a problem with that?
No, I'm just trying to understand. I'm trying to understand I didn't know if the board called for an audit or how these transactions came up, because I wasn't aware that there were any problems. And I've been very-
How would you suggest I proceed? At the end of this year, I will ultimately be responsible for the entire year numbers.
Sure.
From January until my appointment. I don't have any numbers unless I look at them.
It sounds like you were doing an audit, though. How else would you have come across these transactions, sort of randomly?
That was you just going through the bank statements.
You didn't have access to bank statements though, right?
There's copies of
They're
them.
in that bag.
Okay. So were these transactions from 18 or from 19?
Oh,
So have these questions that you have you reviewed them with me? Because I would have booked the transactions in QuickBooks in 19. Have you asked me questions about any of this?
I have not had an opportunity. When you gave me your office hours where you would have been available for the reconciliation, as you told the board, we did not have any documents from the bank, nor do I have access to that.
It seems to me the treasurer and the clerk should have a discussion and go over this in detail to find out if there truly is a problem before bringing it to the board.
That would have been appreciated.
Okay. Let's do approval. I have a question on check number 16503. Division of Unemployment. What is that?
That is a fee for us not filing our unemployment return.
Penalties?
Yes.
Why is
It was for the, I believe it was for this first or your second quarter. I have to pull out the documents.
Why did you file them?
I can't answer that. I don't know.
Gentlemen, here it is.
What is?
A mess.
Yeah, no shit.
Wonder why.
Yeah, I got a question on 16507 State Truck Center. What that was for? That's something from the fire department? That's something from the highway.
Which one?
16507.
Tri-State Truck Center?
What was the number again? 16507.
507.
So it's made up of 2 separate invoices. $370 was for a grass cutter, and $213 was for a grass cutter.
Is that for highway then?
Hoses for the grass cutter, yeah.
I've never seen high-speed trucks in it.
I think that's the only place you can get them, that type of hose, that high pressure hose that's got a.
Where is that place?
Teenage
Teenage.
It's
Oh,
a teenage truck.
G8.
Yeah, it's the new one I bought.
Well, I know he called me and I figured he could get data. I said, well, you can try CarQuest.
The $276, which is 16,501, is for Cellcom.
Yes. What's your question?
Did we get the phone back from Ron Deerfuss?
Yep, we
Did
did.
that get to Patty?
Yep, and then her and I went down and got her one that wasn't a flip phone, that she could receive her emails and stuff on it.
And what does that cost us?
$999, I believe.
It's on a flex plan for 2 years, just like the clerk's phone is.
Yeah, it's exactly the same as what we've had in the past.
And you're micromanaging the fire department for $250, and you go and buy a $1,000 cell phone and don't come to the board for it.
It's on a flex pay, which we've done in the past. You needed a phone.
Doesn't the board have to approve that?
They are right now.
I may not.
I would say that would be for approval before it was bought, right?
Well, we are responsible for supplying her the materials in order for her to do her job. How do you expect us to do that?
Well, I guess you could have used that phone to call Tanya about the mistakes on the bank account, right?
I didn't say there were any mistakes on the bank account. I said the tax savings account.
So we didn't use the phone to communicate well. That we spent $900 for.
She was gone. I did call her while she was gone, thank you.
I've been back in town for over a week, so. And I responded to every single email, text, voicemail that I received during the last 2 weeks of June while I was in Florida.
Yes, you did, because you answered all of my questions when I had them.
16,516 PC doctors for $844.98.
Computer
For whom?
or the treasurer.
Did the previous treasurer not have a computer?
There was a computer. There's a huge issue with it, and I've already discussed it with you, Dave. Patty, you want to explain it?
The computer was apparently taken to PC Doctors and it was updated without the office programs. And when I could not access the tax information to do the statement of assessments, I went back to PC Doctors and they believe that there is a virus that would cost you more to fix the computer than it was worth. It was cheaper to buy a new computer. I also had Transcendent Technology remotely access that computer to try and repair it, and they couldn't.
Do the computers have virus protection on them?
Apparently, it's not working correctly.
What operating system are you using? Because Windows comes factory installed with
Yeah,
Windows
it
Defender.
does, yeah.
What kind of websites are the employees going to? Because I have not gotten a virus for a long time using Windows machine.
My understanding is he got the computer back that way from the former treasurer. Can't prove she erased it or anything.
I've never said that there was anything that was deleted. I'm just saying there was an issue with that computer. It would not update. And there are certain framework required for certain software that requires the update. It wouldn't do it. We took it in, I took it in and tried to fix it. I got 2 different suggestions and 2 different text forms.
I also wanted to question 16509 Clemmies. Is that something for the highway?
I think it was a fire department.
Pat hasn't said anything, and that's what I was wondering, you know. It's
What that is
from the highway equipment, I'd like to know.
$800 some dollars.
824.65.
That's repairs to the fender. Accident that happened several years ago. The guys were trying to find used parts to put on it for fiberglass, and I basically got tired of waiting around for them to try to find a red one, and we took it in, had taken care of.
And for the information on the board, that was the accident where I hit the turkey on the mutual aid.
Way to go, Dave.
Don't get them poor turkeys.
Actually, technically, the turkey hit the tanker. It was on the
It was on the side.
I wanted to be up front and open.
Who had the right away?
I had lights and siren and I had the radio.
Way to go. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions?
So I don't know if we had a motion to accept the clerk and the financial reports.
No, we referred the clerk's report to financial committee, wasn't it?
Okay. We didn't have-
And they are signed. Anything to do?
I believe Tanya filled out that report, and those are, Patty, you didn't have anything to do with it, did you?
I filled out the financial report for you guys based on what the former treasurer and I have done in the past. I did it last month when we didn't have a treasurer, just so you could have some numbers. But these numbers have been reconciled in QuickBooks. The only thing that has not been entered in QuickBooks is there's a $740 deposit that we just need to enter the details and apply it appropriately. But I just wanted to give you some numbers.
I don't know, just a question or comment, I guess. I'm not comfortable financially where we are. I don't know whether we want a full-blown audit. I don't like spending money to have somebody else come in.
I don't have a
thought
problem with that.
I thought we had a handle on the finances the last couple of years, but after hearing what I heard tonight, I'm not comfortable.
Well, we're gonna approve checks, or what are we gonna do here?
Are we gonna approve the finance report, the one that Patty presented, or is that referred somewhere else too? I don't have a motion for that one.
Patty, did you want that for finance committee? That's the way we had left that, wasn't it?
It was my understanding that Patty and
Tanya both,
the clerk and the treasurer were going to work together on that situation
right,
and then potentially get it referred to the finance committee.
okay.
I don't really want to touch it. That doesn't interest me. That's not, it seems like there's too much conflict there.
Beyond the purview of the finance.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily an objective thing currently, in the current state.
Well, you guys are going to get together and try to resolve the issues.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, why don't we leave the financial statement and get these checks approved?
I'll make a motion to, I believe it's checks 16,483 through 16,553.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion or any more discussion? Okay.
Okay, all right. Rob,
Aye.
Gary,
I,
Russ,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Deb.
Aye. And you got the motion for the Matthew and Jim?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, appointment of fire chief. I'd like to appoint Rod Bauer for the period through December 2020, am I correct?
Yes.
Is that where your appointment ends? To include the implementation of purchase orders for any amount over $250 to be approved by the chair, and to improve upon the mentioned key performance indicators outlined during your evaluation. And I'd like you and I to sit down and have a review on where we're standing in January.
Okay.
All right, can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
I think we had the discussion, well, I think $250 requiring a purchase order could become unwieldy. You know, before we were talking about getting things approved over $1,000, but
That
if
one is set
the,
up for Fall Fest, am I correct? Fall Fest, you can't go over 1,000 without coming to the board first, actually.
Spending money, yes,
Yeah.
for others, other than the Fall Fest itself.
I think if all the parties are involved are willing to try to work with this, but understand it may become unwieldy and may need to change, then I'm supportive.
I think we'd be able to work on this and it'll work out fine.
I do have a question. On the EMS side, if we use an EpiPen on scene, I have to go get that replenished that same day. And those are at least $350 to $400 a pop. Who's gonna be around to sign that purchase order for me so I can go pick it up that same day?
Let me know.
If it's 2 o'clock in the morning, I can call
You
you and
can
you'll
call
sign
me
the purchase order?
24/7. I don't have a problem with that.
Alright.
I'm usually up.
Okay. I just need to make
Ernie?
sure somebody's around.
Ernie?
Since I take care of billing, incoming billings for the fire department, turn over to Tanya, are you going to have written POs made up so we have access to use
There's
them?
POs right in the QuickBooks, you can run them off.
She can use those?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because POs will be run through my treasurer.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I have it.
Tanya?
All right, Bob,
Aye.
Gary,
I,
Russ,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Deb.
Aye. Okay, resolution to bank signers. And congratulations, Rod. We have a new chief. Huh?
not new.
Well, he's new today. Oh, I forgot. Wisconsin County Association, just a quickie here, is July 25th at 7 o'clock at the River. I just got this in the mail today, so anybody that wants to go.
July 25th, where?
River Ballroom. And then the resolution we're on, where did we do that one? Oh, here it is. And I think we need to change this resolution to include, to read any and all bank statements or loans, because that's not included in there. When Patty and I had went to the bank and we had the issue with the loan for the fire department, we had a heck of a time trying to convince them that we needed access to get the statements, to get the paperwork, so that we could make the payment. So that also needs to be included on there. And I think, let's see. There's another 3 on there. What else was there, Patty?
Any and all accounts, and then it lists the clerk and the treasurer as board members.
Okay. Yeah, we need to change that to, as follows instead of board members.
Where are you saying that, Deb?
Oh, where is that, Patty? Show me.
The following board members, okay.
Right. Right here. That's on it. So we need to change that so that the resolution is proper. And then, in order for Patty to sign checks, everybody at the board level gets to run to the bank again and sign the paperwork.
So this will be after what date? Will they be ready down there? So
Should we have,
Well, one, I have to redo the resolution, and then Deb and I both will have to sign it, and then I'll have to take it to the bank. So I can email you or call you and let you know when the bank's ready.
okay. I don't want to go down there. It should be, my wife will tell me I got an email.
so I'd like to make a motion for the resolution number 2019-05 for appointing authorized signers for Pioneer Bank to be approved with the corrections as we just stated.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Tanya?
Okay, Bob?
Aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Deb?
Aye. Okay. I was looking through the payroll records, I found on there that there was compensation being made for employees, which was for, the clerk and the treasurer were getting paid for board meetings over and above their salaries. It was never board approved. I had asked Tanya about it, and she told me that Michael had told her that's the way they did it, but that was never ever board approved.
I don't remember if it was Mike or Donna, but meeting pay was going on with, when Mike was here and
Mhm.
Donna was here. And so I just continued it because I don't have a document to say what should be meeting pay and what shouldn't be.
Is meeting pay just the $25 or
It's
is it?
$25, and so, I know when I took office last November, then Don and I got compensation for all the extra budget meetings that we went to. And then I got compensation for, board review and something else that just came up, I can't remember. Oh, maybe finance committee, it was 2 meetings that I paid for.
But see, that was never part of the salary at all. And that was never board approved.
I was never aware of that.
They did, well, they never.
I assume that, you know, the
Well, I
clerk,
did
that
talk
was
to-
part of her hours.
I did talk to Mike and Donna both, and they said that they were board approved, but I don't have any documents to show you that.
No, because I looked through the minutes too, because it never happened prior to when Michael was there. And that was never approved in his salary either, so. And I had caught it when I was signing a check, I seen 2 board meetings on there. John?
If this person was giving himself meeting allowance that wasn't allowed, would you be suing him? I
That's a
imagine
board
that the
decision. I don't
statute
know.
limitations has not expired on that, if it was within the last 3 years.
Well, that actually was last year. So that would have been Donna and Mike and Tanya.
So I will tell you just from my position that we do not have very good records in my office on compensation at all. I have a piece of paper that was left from I'm not sure who, and it's very old and tattered, and I have no other records. So I think suing someone for $25 meeting allowance is over the top, because if this was unintentional.
I'm saying that the person that initiated paying
I
themselves
agree.
meeting allowance, not the people, not the subsequent people, because then they're following precedent, and that's.
When I talked to Tanya about that, I had asked her, and she says that is what Michael had told her. In her defense, I don't believe she
No, I'm not suggesting that Tanya is, I'm suggesting that Michael, if he was the one that instituted paying himself meeting allowance that was not board approved, then
Well, then
something
him
should
and Donna.
be, something should be taken, some action should be taken, because otherwise, there's not a whole lot of disincentive to not do that.
Right.
I mean,
Well, the board's gonna have to decide.
First thing we have to do is find out how far back it's been going
It
on.
wasn't before June of last year, that I know.
Just by comparison, so the visitors in the audience know, board members do receive a meeting allowance of $25 in addition to their stipend. So it wouldn't be hard to imagine that the clerk and treasurer might make the same assumption.
So Deb, did you find that by looking through the payroll records in QuickBooks?
No, I found it on your check when you had two meetings under this last
But
time.
you said,
And I did
back
look
to
through-
June, and I wasn't
Yeah.
appointed until November.
And I did look through payroll, Patty ran them off for me. Wasn't that I was in your computer, she ran them off for me, because I wanted to see them.
And how far back did they go?
Donna got paid last year for 10 meetings in 2018, I think you can pull that up, can't you?
Okay.
And then, Michael, I don't know how many he had.
But nothing prior to that?
Well, I know I never paid any out.
Do you have a worksheet like the board members do that includes how you report your hours? Or that has a
Mike-
space for meeting attendance?
Mike had one that he had created that I just continued using, and
And it has a line item for meeting attendance, $25.
But the motion when Tanya was hired is as follows: to appoint Tanya Holcomb to the position of clerk effective November 14, 2018. The position will require up to 30 hours per week and regular office hours at a salary of $30,000 per year. There's nothing in there about any other compensation. Like I said, it was never in the minutes, because I looked through them, and it's never been board approved.
Could you just, the board make that decision tonight that you want to pay them like you do or not? Like the board does to get extra money?
I think basically this is a notification to let the board know what had been going on, because I had told Tanya, we can't be doing that, because that's never been board approved.
What
Okay?
about forward now? Could you do that?
Well, moving forward, that would come up during budget process and whether or not they'd be getting an increase.
I just have a question. Based on what you read, does that mean when they're attending meetings at night, those are part of her 30 hours a week?
Yeah.
So that's that many less hours she'd be in the office?
Or working from home.
Or
whichever way you
whatever,
wanna
yeah,
look
wherever
at it.
she spends her 30 hours. So if she's
Yeah.
in meetings for 5 hours, that means 5 hours she won't be working on the rest of the work.
Seems like a bargain at $25, but that's just me.
What would you like to do? Well, Dave, you got paid too as a part-time employee, $15 an hour for highway, and that one was never board approved.
$15 an hour and I use my own equipment.
I don't care what you use, you got paid for your
Thank
equipment.
you, Madam Chairman.
Yep,
Thank you.
but it was never board approved for you to be a part-time employee. How do you wanna handle this?
Do you want it back?
Does the town deserve it?
They didn't act on it.
Why didn't they act on it?
Russ, you were around, why didn't we act on it? It's right going
So
around here.
I can tell you that last year, from November until now, when Dave worked, whether it was in payroll or I got an invoice from him, I brought it to the board approved it.
They approved the check.
They approved the check, but I brought it forth verbally to let the board know that it was part of the checks being approved.
Okay, but were you ever approved for a part-time employee?
I went out of the goodness of my heart and you were following me.
Well, if it
one
was
day.
out of the goodness of your heart, then why did you get paid?
Yeah, wrong.
Dave.
This is our.
You followed me the morning that I got all wet. You sat in the damn car and didn't lift a hand to do a damn thing. Pat and I went and took trees off the road. I'm not doing it for nothing.
Well, then it needs board approval for you to be a part-time employee in order to.
I am not
reclaim
part of
this.
the road. I've got the garbage and recycling.
Then it still
And
needs to
Mr.
be
Gary
board
over there.
approved before you can be a part-time employee. Those
Okay.
are the rules.
I know they approved Rod and
There was
Josh Troutman last
Roddy.
year. And
Josh.
Ron was always on, and I assumed Dave was on it, I never
No,
knew
it
he
was never
wasn't
board
till,
approved.
now,
And
I just
Gene.
found out now.
Yep.
Are you allowed to go backwards now?
Yes, I make a motion to approve Dave Swenson as a part-time employee retroactive to the
on the-
first time.
That is not on the
Are you
agenda.
Then why are
allowed
we
to
having
go
the
backwards
Because we're
now?
discussing compensation for employees.
Are you allowed to go backwards
We are
now?
not taking any more comments. I would like to get.
I asked a
this
question, I think you can answer it. Your platform when you ran was openness, so I think you
What was
could
your
be.
question then?
Are we allowed to go backwards on this question now? Since the
No.
other board did it, are we allowed to go backwards?
If Dave would be appointed as a part-time employee, it would be needed to be put on the agenda and gone through the proper channels.
Not what I asked. Can you go backwards? Is it legal to go backwards? And do this?
You just did with the chief.
I don't know the answer to the question. I'm just asking the question. I don't know the answer.
I didn't go backwards with the chief.
Well, I mean, you're doing clawbacks right now.
We're fixing what hasn't been done.
Well, okay, so, no, well then, if you're gonna fix it, then you're gonna put something in place to say he is or isn't an employee moving forward.
Then we
Not
need to have it on
relitigating what
the,
happened in a prior board meeting.
then we need to have it on the agenda in order to vote on that.
Okay.
You want it on the agenda next month?
Can be
Okay,
that.
then don't put it on the agenda.
We need a lawyer at these meetings. Not just continue.
So what would you like to do about the compensation for employees? You want to take this up in budget process? I just wanted to make sure that everybody was.
I think you have a motion on the floor.
Is there a motion on the floor for anything, Tanya?
I made a motion and you said I couldn't.
Oh, that was for making him a part-time employee, I said that
Right.
needs to be on the agenda.
New business, why does it need to be on the agenda?
It is not listed. Okay, was there a second on that motion? And I don't believe that we can even do that, can we?
If you had a lawyer here, you'd know the answer to the question.
Well, then we'll have to go by what I do know, and that is, it needs to be on the agenda.
Well, it sounds like an item for next month then.
Well, Dave said he doesn't want to be put on, so it doesn't pay to put it on for next month, because he said he doesn't want to be an employee. So,
Is there a second for that motion? Then motion failed. Okay. bids
so
for-
I have a question, as long as we're talking about people operating equipment. I mean, if I decided to go help Pat when he needs to pull that culvert out, which I called the people back and they're not, must not be home from their vacation yet. Could I get in another red truck and take it up there, or do I have to be put down for insurance?
I think you can just take the truck if you need to. Am I correct, Dave?
At this point, I'm not saying anything. What I've dedicated the last,
Then we've asked you just a
30
simple
or 40
question. Yes,
years.
I believe you can call the insurance company to make sure. That should not be an issue, if you need to go help him.
I don't know what they've done in the past.
I know that as far as on the fire department, that your driver's license and number has to be turned in to Tanya, so Tanya can turn it into the insurance company. So I would assume that people driving
I'm
the
sure
highway
you already
equipment,
have.
which would be the same way.
and she has that information.
Right.
So I mean, as long as you're, I guess, under this circumstance, doing it for no pay.
And then you have to figure out too, Gary, how it fits with, if you get hurt or something while you're doing it, how that plays into work comp. If you're paid or not paid, an employee or not employee. So if something would happen to you, somebody would take care of you. So I think you gotta figure that one out too.
There is working on our salaries.
But he's not a board member.
I guess he is, he's a supervisor.
Yeah, I'm a board member. I just wanted to know, and, you know, if something ever came up where he needed somebody,
Yeah,
you know,
I think it's a legitimate question.
Okay, well, that's for ditching.
okay, I know they talked in the last couple of years about paving Birch east of 97. That road's been prepped.
T.
I'm sorry, T. Long night. The ditches there are atrocious, along with other ditches in this township. There's trees growing in the right of way. Don't ask me why, but before I get any road hard surface, the ditches are gonna have proper drainage, and trees and stuff growing in there are gonna be taken out. And I'd like to request bids to do that. The simple reason that is, there's way too much in there. I don't think that would live long enough to clean it out. And I'd also, and I know Keeman and Gilead were two other roads previously mentioned on resurfacing, and I've been waiting, guy from Barner to give me his advice on what he would do, whether they would mill in place or lay over on Birch Tree, Keeman to, from 97 to Birch, Keeman Avenue, and then Keeman Street. There's a couple places there where there's ditches. I mean, the one spot, you basically might as well see there isn't a ditch, because the whole ditch is filled in, there's water standing in there just about all the time. The culvert shot there. And so I wanted to put out bids to get this done.
You got your bid brought up?
And as far as, no, I don't know how to do that. But as far as that road goes, I know the question was brought up all the time, whether that is a 3-rod road or a 4-rod road. And the road right away that I have from 2005, I believe it is, shows that it's a 4-rod road. But when you take a measurement for the property center of the road, it is only a 3-rod road. So I'm sure when they got the road ready to get paved the year before, the gravel probably got pushed out. Now whether the ditches in there are gonna be adequate enough or not, I don't know. May end up having to move the culverts all in. And then I don't know how to go about, if we have to do that, move all the right of ways in. Or if there's enough there, we can just ditch it, clean all the stuff out of the ditches, and make the surface pavement not as wide as it is.
Hey Gary, is the size of the ditch relative to the designation of the roadway?
Well, you like to have the culverts in the ditch line far enough away from the paved portion.
Okay.
You know, you need your paved portion, and then I don't know what they recommend for, you know, the gravel on the side of it. But if you get in further, you know, the further away you get, you can have a nice sloped ditch, and the property owner is more apt to take care of it.
You have a road ordinance in place, you have a cross-section, and reconstruction of any road in the township has to be done according to that profile.
How many miles of ditch need done there?
I believe that's 1 mile.
So just the 1 mile that's real bad?
That's right. And the other, I'm open, I can get Pat to do that. I already asked about that one section. A few years ago, I asked about it, and it never got done. But now we have to do something. That culvert is shot there.
We need a motion to allow bids to be put out for ditching. Which I just made. I need a second.
I'll second that. And I don't know who we're going to get to figure it out.
Who made the motion?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
All right, Bob,
Discussion?
I'm sorry.
You know, I'm supportive, but I don't see how we can afford this with the tax levy being cut by $160 some odd thousand last year. I don't think we have any extra funds. Why would we put this ahead of other things that the town needs to do? So I don't know that I can support this.
It's road maintenance, that's what it is.
We don't have the money to do road maintenance.
Budget's budget.
Yeah.
Well, we have, I don't know, 100-some thousand. And that was another thing. I was waiting for the guy to get back to me from the county on the culverts up on Old Plain. If they decided they could get it done this year, and we may have to pay and get reimbursed next year, and they haven't gotten back to me.
But all you're asking for right now is to see what it's gonna cost if we want to do it.
Correct. I just want to put out bids.
The question is, do you have to accept the lowest bid then once they're out?
No, you don't.
So we can get the information, but we're not obligated to accept one of the bids?
So the,
I think we should find out how much it
in
costs.
the notice, it states that the board can refuse or accept any bids. But if you are going to accept one, if the road work is more than 25,000, you have to accept the lowest bid.
I would almost think that would be more than 25,000.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, anybody, if you want to take a trip down that road, go ahead.
I think we should know how much it costs.
It should never, it never should have been allowed to go up like that. And that's not the only lease.
Okay, can we get a vote on this time?
There's questions back there.
You could put out a request for information versus a request for bids, and then you're not tied to, then you don't get caught in some kind of accidental situation where you have to accept the bid.
We need to.
Are you allowed to do an RFP
We
as
should-
opposed to a bid?
We need to check the Towns Association rules on that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think we can just put it up for bids and see what it's gonna come in at.
I think if the 25,000 bid comes into play, then I think I would put out a request for information, just get cost on.
Well, the people gonna be, you're getting these numbers from, gonna be happy spending their time without a chance of them getting the project?
They'd be much more happy to
Yes.
spend their time on a request for information where they have to be less precise than a request for bids that is not actually gonna be acted upon, in my opinion. I don't know. I mean, they'll give you a ballpark versus actual per piece cost.
Right, but then you have some idea of.
Yeah,
of
it'll
what
be an
you're
estimate
looking for.
versus estimate, so you can get an idea of how much it's gonna cost versus this is the exact amount it's gonna cost, and then depending on how the bylaws or whatever are written, you might get into a situation where it says if you go out for a request for bids and you get one over 25,000, then you have to take the lowest one, and you know.
No, the bids say right in there, you can refuse
Reject.
or reject.
Yes, but
It
if
says
you
right in
accept,
there.
but if you accept one, you have to accept the
If you
lowest.
accept, yes, then you have to take the lowest. But we do have the right to refuse.
Let me remind the board that you're on the hook for $180,000 for the Stott Avenue Bridge also in the next 2 years.
Mm-hmm. And I think
And-
26,000 of it is this year, am I correct?
I had a call from Jim Griesbach, and he said there's gonna be there might have to be some acquisition of property. Because the bridge deck is longer than twice as long as what's already there. And there's a driveway in the way, so there's gonna have to be some acquisitions of some property. Or it's gotta be worked out between the property owners who are adjacent driveways.
So the driveway where the guy lives way back in there?
So the house back there.
Just for
No, I know that, I know
information,
that.
that's all I'm saying.
Well, we got a bit of, or a motion on the table here.
Give him Gary's number next.
Any more discussion?
All right, Bob,
Nay.
Gary,
Yes.
Russ,
Yes.
Dave,
No,
Deb.
Yes.
I'm
Okay. The Harry Peterson CSA. I believe that the plan commission had made recommendation last month, but we didn't have the paperwork on that to approve.
And that's on the Harvard property.
Yeah.
And he's building a new house, Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah,
About that one, yeah.
what's that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's right on 97, and where's the driveway?
That's that corner, right, Dorothy?
I believe the
It'll
driveway's
come
gonna
off
be
the
on
back way.
Cross.
It will not come on to 97.
It's gonna be on Cross
Yeah, on
driveway.
Cross.
Yeah.
Cross, right.
Across the street. That's lot two. I'll move to follow the recommendation of the planning commission for Harry Peterson, portion of Ken Harder's property on Cross Street and Highway 97.
Second that.
Any discussion? Brandon?
Bob,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Russ,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Aye. In the Darnell Leffel, the recommendation from the plan commission, and I was at that meeting, they had said they would like us to talk to Darnell. So I called him and asked him to be at the meeting, and he said he would not be here, be able to make it here tonight, and would like us to table this until next month. And he let me know then.
the county is asking for the resolution, so I'll just have to let them know.
So we need a motion to table that for next month? I'll make that motion to table Darnell Leffel for his rezone until August.
Second.
Any discussion?
Bob,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Russ, Dave,
Aye.
Deb.
Aye. And then the keys for the fire station, I did talk to Carl, he had him call me, and there are no laws stating that we could not have keys. And the insurance company, it's not any bigger liability for the board members who have keys than it is to walk across our parking lot. So I would like a motion for Rod to furnish keys to the board members who wish to have them. Can I get a second?
I'll second that. All right, I do have a,
Any discussion?
yeah, I mean, I guess even if you don't wanna give us a key, because that's a, you got a punch in there, don't you?
We have.
Or the code.
Yes.
Yes.
Key code,
Keep numbers.
right?
I mean, they could give a key code, whatever.
Same difference, it's access. Any discussion? Any others?
We had this discussion last time. It seems like a really bad idea. The justification that was given was that somebody needed some ice from the fire station last time. I didn't hear a good justification. I think you have access to potentially protected health records. You have access to dangerous equipment, oxygen tanks. If there was ever a problem with some missing, there are medications there, missing medications, I think you're opening up a big can of worms. And I've seen documentation from the Wisconsin Towns Association, a representative there that recommended strongly against giving out any more access than is absolutely necessary.
Yep, all the records should be locked in your office, am I correct?
They're locked in 2 offices.
Okay. Medication should all be locked up, am I correct?
No, they are not. They are in vehicle 8, because that is our EMS vehicle that goes out. They are not locked on 8. They will have to be if you guys get access, so I will need a locked safe installed on 8, so I can lock up the medications.
Okay.
What if someone that has a key from the board falls over there, they covered?
Yes?
Yeah.
Any other discussion?
Bad idea. If you want access to the station, join the department. There's plenty of openings.
We'll take it.
John?
I think it sounds like a bad idea. I think that there's a lot of people that get phished for passwords, and having a keypad password is about the same thing. Just earlier in this meeting, there was mention of somebody getting a virus on their computer, which may or may not be related to some sort of email phishing scheme. So I think that that's a poor idea.
Okay. Ernie?
I think there's enough people in the department that if somebody wants to go into the department, call somebody, we can take you in there and show you around, or let you look at things that give you access to it when you want it.
I would like to know why the previous chair could have access, and still does, to that fire department, yet I as chair can't. Can you explain that one to me?
She is co-chairing Fall Fest with me, and her and I have to have meetings, and there is information.
But prior to that, when she was chair, she had access, am I correct? Because I
Yes.
seen her, okay, then what
So
is the
you're telling us
reasoning?
your reasoning is tit for tat?
No.
That's
not
what it
at
just
all.
sounded like. Did I miss something?
No, I'm asking why, as chair, I wouldn't have the same,
Privilege or rights.
right, exactly. Why?
So if you get it, why does the whole board need it?
Well, the board doesn't have to even take it if they don't want to. Because I know like Bob had said he wouldn't want a key, he doesn't have to take a key.
And again, what's the reason for the access? Like, what do you think, what do people
There's been
think's
times where
there?
the lights have been left on and, I mean, it's not an important issue, we're not gonna.
Good, then it shouldn't be an issue,
Okay,
and there
let's
shouldn't need
move
to be
on.
a key going on.
Any other
Or codes
discussion?
going on.
Tanya?
Bob,
Nay?
Gary,
Yes.
Russ,
Yes.
Dave,
No.
Mike, no, that's probably you're gonna do.
Yes. Is there any other correspondence?
There's one other thing, I guess, I'd like the board to this time, I guess, at least look at or consider. I was hoping.
Before you go on, you will know exactly who has access because you will be the one delivering it to that person, okay?
Okay.
All right.
I still think we need to discuss that.
I guess the department had, as a whole, had kind of looked at and had some requests of the individuals that will be having access, but they kind of understand some general guide rules for having the access.
Okay.
So that we don't have the same thing that we have going on between the clerk and the treasurer, between the board, thinking that they can do certain things over there can't, or, I mean, there's expectations, I guess.
Mhm. And understandable. You want us to sign that before we get access, is what?
I guess I would, because of what's going on here, I guess I'd like the whole board to look at it at this time to see if it's acceptable to them, or if they feel that there needs to be something changed or adopted there. And right now, it is just a draft form, it is not a,
Most of this is just common sense, isn't it?
I would hope so, and I would think so.
I mean, I'm not gonna go and open the door for somebody else, you know, or leave the doors unattended or propped open. Yeah, this is all pretty common sense type of thing. I wouldn't have an issue with signing anything like this.
Okay. The other thing that maybe I didn't look on there that's been brought up to my attention is that we are not able to, we're not gonna be able to shut down our iron responding because it doesn't fire up that quick, so that'll be in there. So the board may have to take a HIPAA class
Okay.
because we're not gonna be able to, shut that down, and there may be information on there. And also with the radios and stuff going on. It's just gonna be something that will basically cover the boards if they decide so to have access to it.
Okay.
And then they're also gonna be liable not to say anything. They're
But
not
that
gonna
we
give you a
didn't,
coffee talk.
we didn't know whether boards had to do this, or chair, or anything.
Mrs. Open sat through our HIPAA every year with us at the fire
Okay,
station.
so when is that?
We can hold a special one, I guess, for you guys if that's what you wish.
That'd be fine.
What HIPAA information do you have?
Well, we have an iron responding screen, we've got a TV screen that's hooked up to our iron responding. When we get a call, it scrolls up on the screen, the address, what's going on with this patient or fire, wherever it is. And if you walk in and that's scrolling up, you can't say nothing about that once you leave those doors. You can't even say anything about whose names show up as far as who's responding to that call.
Exactly.
That's all stuff you guys can't say once you walk out those doors. And that's what the whole HIPAA thing is about, is protecting our town constituents from getting rumors going about this, that, and the other thing, and who did this and who did that.
Is that on at all times?
It's on at all times, so we get a call at 3 a.m. in the morning, and I go to the station, I can look up and see, oh, I got Kim going to see, I'm gonna take 8, I'm gonna go.
Where's that located?
In the comm center.
Okay.
Just as you come in the door.
Gary, what comes up is basically a rundown of what the call is. So it'll give you your location, your address, may give you caller name, it will give you a description, and this would be pertinent mostly on a medical call, where they'll give the nature of the illness, the problem, the emergency, whatever it might be. So that'll scroll down, and then when we get that on our phone, we can basically see what that call is, what it's about, things like that, so we know what we're rolling into when we go to those. And that's the kind of information that would display that would be protected, would be on the EMS call for most of the calls that we would see.
I understand.
Is there any other correspondence? John?
If the reason for access is to like turn off lights and stuff, can other good Samaritans in the town request access to the fire department?
No.
To be
I don't
also good
believe so.
Samaritans and? Oh.
You can ask,
Okay,
but I believe between the board and the fire department that we both have to approve you.
okay.
What you gotta keep in mind is with the board, we are all personally liable also.
For what?
Anything that happens in this township, we can be personally liable. Is there any other correspondence? Motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Just obstruction. You're just obstruction.
I wonder if the battery.
I needed to find out when you guys were going, okay, last time. That's right, thank
I get to go last, it's not smart.
It wasn't for Rob, I was.
Take a swing when you go home.